Rangers take a 1-0 lead to the second inning here in Milwaukee and send up the bottom three in the order against Cal Eldred, Mike Devereaux, Damon Buford, and Domingo Cedeno. Devereaux has just 2 hits this year, but they have both been multiple RBI hits. One driving in 3 runs and the other 2 runs. He is 2 for 11 with 5 runs batted in. A 182 batting average, righty against righty, as Cal Eldred gets set to work. Big windup over the top, high leg kick, and a curveball bounces in for ball 1. Devereaux filling in for Warren Newson, with Juan Gonzalez on the disabled list for the entire month of April, most probably. And Newson normally the guy who'd play against a right-hander. A 1-0 pitch. Big curve stays high, and Eldred has missed on 2 curveballs in a row, starting out the second inning. Texas got a run in the first. McLemore a double, went to third on a wild pitch, scored on a Dean Palmer infield out. There were 2 walks in the inning, but both of those runners were left stranded. 2-0 the count. And Eldred back to work. The pitch, fastball, swung on, hit high in the air to left center field, carrying in the wind, but not deep enough. In the alley, calling for it is the center fielder, Gerald Williams. And he puts it away right in front of the warning track as Devereaux tomahawked a high pitch for out number 1. That brings up Damon Buford, who went hitless in yesterday's ball game, slipping to a .250 average for the season. He is 3 for 12 with a homer and 3 runs batted in. He has never faced Cal Eldred before. And the first pitch to him, he shows bunt and takes inside for ball 1. Talking to Mark McLemore before the game, he had just come in from the cold field area. He said it's a good day for bunting. A 1-0 pitch. It is low. And he was not referring to the opening day decorations hanging from the second deck, although they do have the bunting up for opening day. But Cirillo's been playing way in at third base. Now he drops back. The 2-0 to Buford is popped up on the infield. Cirillo moves in from third toward the mound. Now backpedals to the shortstop. Almost collides, and Valentin makes the catch. Cirillo thought that ball was going to be caught near the mound. Valentin wound up making the catch right in the base path, halfway between second and third. And now there are 2 outs. And here's Domingo Cedeno, the switch hitter batting left, filling in for Benji Gill at shortstop today. Gill strained a groin muscle running the bases yesterday. Cedeno 1 for 4 in the early portion of the season with a pinch hit single. And the pitch to Domingo swung on and missed. In on the hands, and it's 0-1. Cirillo way in at third against the possible bunt. Jaha is not in close at first. If Cedeno wanted to drag a bunt on the right side, he has some room. The pitch is way inside, almost hit him in the shoes. 1-1. Cedeno is also facing Cal Eldred for the first time. 1 ball and 1 strike. McLemore on deck. And here's the pitch. It is outside and low. A changeup. 2 balls and a strike. The wind gusts last night in the Milwaukee area were so strong that a portion of roof insulation was blown right off of County Stadium, a 20-foot by 30-foot piece, and flying into the parking lot. The 2-1 pitch. It is outside, so the winds gusting today up to 25 miles an hour are actually quite a bit less severe than last night.
Just a little breeze. Hear that blowing around outside your room last night?
It did. Windows were rattling. 3-1 pitch. Fastball, strike at the belt. Cedeno had taken a step toward first. Ted Hendry gives Eldred a high strike, and the count is 3-2. The outfield way around toward left against Cedeno. The switch hitter batting left. Payoff pitch. Ball 4. Eldred missed down and in. That is his third base on balls. He has struck out 1. And Cedeno is on with McLemore at the plate, and we'll see if Johnny Oates gives Cedeno a go sign.
Sooner or later, you keep walking people. The idea is it's supposed to hurt you. He wound up issuing 2 walks in the first inning that didn't come back to haunt him. And at least from his perspective, he's done this one with 2 men out.
McLemore had the wind-blown double to the warning track in center that started the game. He scored the only run of the game. The pitch to Mac. Fastball, strike call on the outside corner. Cirillo again is way in at third base. Holding the runner at first is Jaha. Rodriguez on deck. 0-1. Eldred delivers. Curveball low. 1-1. Cirillo playing in at third is way off the line, about 20 feet off the line. And it is a big difference between the way he plays McLemore and the way Cal Ripken would play him, when Ripken would come in shallow but hug the line. 1 ball, 1 strike. It is outside for a ball, 2-1. McLemore tried to bunt for a hit on Ripken by trying to push it past the mound towards shortstop. Cirillo is taking that bunt away. If Mac were to lay one down, it would have to be right down the foul line on that side of the infield. 2-1, and a lob over to first. Cedeno is back. The Rangers have 1 stolen base this year in 1 attempt. Damon Buford successful yesterday. 2-1. The stretch. And the pitch. McLemore swings. It's a ground ball toward the middle. Backhanded by Vina. He shovels underhand to Valentine for the force to end the inning. No runs on no hits and 1 left for Texas. In the middle of the second, it's the Rangers 1 and the Brewers nothing. We go to the bottom of the second inning in Milwaukee. The Rangers on top by a 1-0 score. It'll be Newfield, Burnett, and Valentine for the Brewers. Game 2 of this series will be Wednesday evening at 6:35. That game has been pushed back a half an hour for national television considerations. Bobby Witt will make his first start of the year. He has had a relief appearance. And right-hander Jeff D'Amico will pitch for the Brewers. Thursday at 1:05, the series finale sends John Burkett against lefty Scott Carl, last year's winningest Brewer pitcher. He won 13 games. And the weather forecast is much the same for the next 3 days. Temperatures primarily in the 30s. Mark Newfield, right-handed batter, making his first start of the season. He is 1-for-1 as a pinch hitter, troubled by a hamstring strain, but back in the lineup today. Big 24-year-old right-handed batter. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. And Ken Hill's first pitch to Newfield, fastball strike in on the hand. With Milwaukee last year, Newfield batted .307 in 49 games after coming over from San Diego in the Greg Vaughn deal. A 1 pitch, strike ball, fastball in. And Ken Hill has perfectly located 2 fastballs on the inside corner to get ahead at 0-2 to Newfield. Now the 0-2 delivery. Breaking ball outside. He wouldn't offer it the slider. And it's 1-2. The Rangers are straight away in the outfield. McLemore shades way over toward the middle on the infield against the right-handed hitter. Palmer backed up at third. A 1-2 pitch on the way. Swing and a miss on a split finger, and Newfield looked terrible on that. He was badly fooled. Hill has struck out 2 batters in a row. And here's Jeremy Burnett, a left-handed hitter. He's batting .308. He's 4-for-13. No homers, no runs batted in. We have some sort of a disturbance in the crowd up behind first base. Ken Hill has actually stepped back off the rubber and taken a look up into the stands. Now the pitch to Burnett, swing and a miss on a fastball away, and it's 0-1. Again, tailgating prior to the Brewers opener is a big tradition in Milwaukee. And usually Milwaukee's favorite beverage is part of the action. The 0-1 pitch. Inside 1-1.
What would that be?
Made them famous. 1 ball and 1 strike. Valentine waiting on deck. A pitch to Burnett's fastball high. 2 balls and a strike. Talking to Ken Hill, who grew up in Lynn, Massachusetts, he said he was used to playing in cold weather as a kid. They didn't expect warm weather till much later than this. 2-1, and it's outside, 3-1. However, Hill, as a youngster, was not a pitcher. He was a second baseman until he attended college. North Adams State College in Massachusetts is where they told him, hey, your arm is too good to be playing second base. You better start pitching. 3-1 delivery, and it is low, ball 4. A 1-out walk to Jeremy Burnett, and the Brewers, trailing by a 1-0 score, have a 1-out base runner for Jose Valentine. Phil Garner, an aggressive manager. The Brewers have been among the top base-stealing teams almost every year with Garner at the helm. This is his 6th year. They have calmed down some in recent years from Garner's reckless running. early in his managerial career.
Yeah, but Burnett's is 3 for 3 in stolen bases attempted this year, and he had a couple yesterday in their win in Toronto, so it's a good time to remember that.
Rodriguez behind the plate, of course, and Hill throws over to first base. And Garner last year did not run much against the Rangers at all. Undoubtedly a concession to the throwing arm of the Ranger Gold Glove catcher. Hill does a good job holding runners. 1 out, 1 on. The Rangers look for 2. Valentin from the left side takes way outside, and it is ball 1. Valentin off to a rough start. He is 1 for 12, hitting .083. After batting .259 with 24 homers last year and 95 runs batted in.
Yeah, we got another ball thrown out of the stands out in left field, and Jim McKean, the crew chief, the third base umpire, has now called time, and he is trotting toward the Milwaukee dugout. Now, it looked like a lot of that stuff had stopped, but there was definitely another one. It was another one of those baseballs, and you can only presume that he is warning Phil Garner that something's got to be said or done to the crowd, or else some kind of penalty is going to be invoked. And Garner's nodding and said, yes, I understand.
Last year, of course, the National League game was forfeited when the Montreal fans were throwing those Henry bars. Was that the deal last year?
Oh, yeah, for Henry Rodriguez.
And the umpires do have the authority to do that. Generally, there will be a warning over the public address system before a forfeit is awarded. This is the 4th time by my count that baseballs have been thrown onto the field. And this game's only been going on for about 40 minutes. Now, there's all kinds of other debris blowing around on the field that the fans cannot be held accountable for. Hot dog wrappers and that sort of thing. But obviously, any baseball thrown on the field is directly a result of a spectator who is violating one of the cardinal rules of the game.
Jim McKean went into the Brewers dugout, and I'm presuming that he called up to the press box and said something that we should hear repeated by the public address announcer momentarily.
And unfortunately for the Rangers and Ken Hill, this occurs with the Rangers in the field, and they're the ones who have to stand around and try and stay warm while this delay takes place. 1-0 to Valentin. Williams on deck. There goes the runner. The pitch is swung on, grounded on the right side to his right. Stevens can't get it. McLemore does, but has no play. The ball went right under Lee Stevens' glove as he roamed to his right. And it goes as an infield single. He deflected the ball slightly. That enabled McLemore to get to the ball, but prevented McLemore from having any play at first base. If he hadn't touched it, it might have gone through and sent the runner around to third. So it's probably a good thing that he got a bit of leather on it. There are now men at first, and Gerald Williams coming up with 1 out.
I'm not real sure how he didn't get the ball, though. He seemed to be there. I mean, he seemed to have gotten over in time, and where he was a little slow, it looked like, was getting his glove down to the ball.
Another baseball has been thrown out onto the field, and Mike Devereaux has gone and retrieved it and rolled it to the ball boy in foul territory, and Jim McKean now is coming in from third base.
You know, he's a little irritated because he's just pointed up to the press box, and they're making an announcement now. The Rangers are playing the game under protest because of the balls being thrown out onto the field. But what McKean was saying was he wanted that announcement made prior to that, when he went into the dugout and called up. And then, at that point, just then, he came walking up the third base line. He looked at Phil Garner, and he pointed to the press box and held out his arms, palms up. And Johnny Oates is now going to pull the Rangers off the field. Oh, that's going to get more baseballs thrown out, I'll bet you. So what McKean was saying to Garner was, where the heck was that announcement when I asked you for it before? And Garner looked back at him and said, I called him. That's all I can do. And Garner, Eric, has just kicked the dirt in front of the dugout, and he's not upset, I don't think, at Johnny or the umpires, but at the fans. And here come 2 more out of the upper deck, and one, here they all come now.
Already 15 or 20 baseballs have been thrown onto the field since the Rangers left the field. All the Rangers are already in the safety of the dugout, except for Lee Stevens. Stevens, standing outside the Ranger dugout, picks up a baseball and sticks it in his back pocket, and then walks off the field. The Brewers manager, Phil Garner, has returned to the top step of the Brewer dugout the PA announcer, for the first time this afternoon, has announced that the Brewers request that fans refrain from throwing baseballs onto the field. Well, again, the difficult situation for the Rangers here, not only their safety, as the baseballs seem to be getting thrown while they are out on the field, but also the fact that every time there's a delay, it freezes their pitcher. On a 35-degree day with a wind chill in the neighborhood of 10 degrees. And Johnny Oates, understandably, isn't going to put up with that. Talk about the home field advantage or the disadvantage of being a visiting club. Johnny Oates pulling his team off the field and saying we will not play under these conditions, and you certainly cannot blame him.
Well, and now we see fans above us in the upper deck on their feet and looking up further at apparently some of the violators. But, you know, this is really ridiculous in the park of the club that is owned by the man who is the acting commissioner of baseball for an announcement not to have been made the very first time that happened. And for the announcement not to have indicated that the Brewers will forfeit the game if these objects are not stopped from being thrown out on the field. And it's really an embarrassment that it took so many of these instances for an announcement even to be made. That's the incredible thing. And I think, again, you won't know until you hear what he says, but just from looking at him and trying to read his body language, that I don't think Phil Garner has any problem with what Johnny has done or what the umpires have done. I don't think he's very pleased with his own fans.
And, you know, the umpires are in jeopardy, too, when balls are being thrown out of the crowd. They're concentrating on the pitch being thrown. You know, they don't need to have to worry about baseballs coming at them from all directions. And, of course, when a manager protests a game, the ruling is made by the league office well after the outcome of the game. But the umpires do have the right to forfeit a game to the visiting team if they feel that the players involved are no longer safe out on the field. The Rangers have actually been involved in forfeits before. The famous and notorious 10-cent beer night forfeit in Cleveland in 1974. A truly amazing story. The Rangers were leading the Cleveland Indians with Billy Martin as the manager. The Indians, in the bottom of the ninth inning, mounted a rally and tied the game 5-5. At that time, spectators started coming out onto the field in the right field corner. This game was played at Cleveland Stadium on a night when beer was sold for 10 cents a cup. And one of the fans tried to pull Jeff Burroughs' glove away from him. Burroughs not only kept the fan from pulling the glove, but also shoved the fan, which may have precipitated a few dozen more fans running onto the field. But in any event, they did come onto the field out of the right field corner, prompting Billy Martin, the Ranger manager, to lead a charge of Ranger players and coaches armed with bats to the right field area to escort Jeff Burroughs onto the field and also to do combat with fans in a couple of cases. The only casualty among the players that day, ironically, was a Cleveland player, pitcher Tom Hilgendorf. The Indian players came out of their dugout and out of their bullpen to help defend the Rangers from the rowdy spectators, and Tom Hilgendorf wound up getting hit over the head with a folding chair and suffered a severe gash on the top of his head. Now, there were some spectators who incurred injuries at the hands of the players in that melee, and Nestor Shylock, the umpiring crew chief, awarded a forfeit win to the Rangers. And again, the Indian fans denied their team, which might have been on the verge of winning the ball game, a chance to win it, and the Rangers were awarded a forfeit. Also, Ranger fans familiar with the move of the team from Washington will recall, or at least be aware, that in the final game, the Washington Senators played in Washington at RFK Stadium before moving to Texas. A forfeit was awarded in the ninth inning. And the Washington Senators lost that ball game to the Yankees because fans came on the field in the ninth inning looking for souvenirs. It had already been announced that the Senators were leaving town and Washington would be without a team. And that was not the same sort of rowdy crowd that you had in Cleveland in 74. Those were basically people just looking for patches of sod and bases and other souvenirs. And amazingly enough, Dick Bosman pitched in both of those ball games. He wasn't on the mound when the forfeit occurred, but he was the starting pitcher in both of them. The starting pitcher for the Washington Senators in that last game in Washington, and the starting pitcher for the Rangers the night the game was forfeited in the 9th inning to the Rangers in Cleveland in 1974.
And also the game last year that you were talking about, the game in Montreal, where that was forfeited. If memory serves, that also happened very late in the game. And this is really an unusual thing to have it happen in the 2nd inning. We've got this delay that is now about 7 minutes old, and nothing else has been said on the public address. There goes another baseball right there. And the fans, again, above us in the upper deck are looking back up like it was some police or security activity, back up further toward the top of the upper deck. And again, we've had no announcement in the last 7 or 8 minutes about what might happen or what has to happen. And, you know, you made the point, Eric, about the umpires also being in jeopardy, in addition to the Rangers out in the field. But so are the Brewers personnel who are out there, because when the Rangers came off the field, and then therefore so did the few Milwaukee people who came out, Chris Bando, the third base coach, missed getting beamed by a baseball thrown from the upper deck by about 5 feet. And the fact that he was walking probably saved him from being knocked unconscious. So it's just a ridiculous thing all the way around.
We owe you a station identification while we pause here and wait and see when the teams will come back on the field. Let's pause for 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Rangers Radio Network. Well, the fans here in Milwaukee have started chanting, "Let's play ball." And, of course, some of their brethren are the reason we are not playing ball right now. Baseball's being thrown out onto the field 5 different times since this game was about to start. And finally, Jim McKean announcing that the Rangers were playing the game under protest, and Johnny Oates calling his team off the field. While we have a moment, we'll take a look at the out-of-town scores and see when Jim McKean sees fit to let this game continue.
There are only 3 other afternoon games in the big leagues, 2 of them in the American League. Minnesota and Detroit are playing again, this time at Tiger Stadium after they had that wild series last week. And it's Justin Thompson, the left-hander for the Tigers, who is prevailing so far this afternoon. Detroit leads that game 5-2 in the bottom of the 6th. Brian Johnson has hit a 3-run homer for Detroit. Frankie Rodriguez started for the Twins, and the former Tiger, Scott Aldred, took over in the 5th inning. Baltimore and Kansas City are tied at 1. They're playing in the top of the 3rd in Kansas City. Jimmy Key for the Orioles and Kevin Apier for the Royals. And in that game, Brady Anderson had a leadoff double. That was his 1,000th career hit. The Orioles earlier today activated Pete Incaviglia from the disabled list and sent Tony Tarasco to the minor leagues to make room for him. Boston at Oakland, Cleveland at Seattle, New York at Anaheim later. The White Sox and Blue Jays have the day off. Cincinnati and Colorado just about to get underway in Denver, Burba against Swift. The Mets will be in Los Angeles tonight, Pittsburgh at San Diego, Philly at San Francisco. The Marlins, Cubs, Cardinals, Expos, Astros, and Braves are all idle today.
Well, we're looking through the rule book here, looking for specific instructions to the umpire regarding forfeits. And the rule book that we are given does not include all of the directives that the umpires receive from the league office. And what we have in our rule book only involves fans actually running onto the field. But basically, it's worth reading you Rule 3.18 from the official baseball rules, which states that the home team shall provide police protection sufficient to preserve order. If a person or persons enter the playing field during a game and interfere in any way with the play, the visiting team may refuse to play until the field is cleared. Now, if the field is not cleared in a reasonable length of time, which in no case shall be less than 15 minutes after the visiting team's refusal to play, the umpire may forfeit the game for the visiting team. So it's basically saying that if there are people on the field, the umpire has to wait 15 minutes to see if the field can be cleared. But again, that is not the only rule under which the umpire can forfeit a game due to a lack of security or a dangerous situation involving the visiting team. We have now waited 11 minutes since the Rangers were called off the field by manager Johnny Oates. There are no baseballs on the field right now. No baseballs have been thrown for several minutes. The question at this point is, when does Oates agree to put his team back on the field? He's already playing the game under protest. The umpire has the right to order Johnny Oates to put his team back on the field, and then if Oates refuses, to forfeit the game to the other side. And Oates and McKean have just had a conversation, and here come the Rangers back onto the field after a 10-minute delay. Ken Hill goes back to the mound. The Brewers have runners at first and second and one out. We are in the last half of the second inning. The Rangers are leading by the score of 1-0, and the PA announcer is making an announcement.
And the announcement said any more baseballs coming out on the field will result in the forfeiture of the game. And they're also putting that announcement on the scoreboard, although on the board it says if this behavior continues, the Brewers will forfeit the game. And what the PA announcer just said was if any more baseballs come out. So I want to start a pool right now, and let's see when the next baseball comes out, because I can't believe that one more won't come after all this idiocy we've seen.
Exactly. All it takes is one liquored-up fan to heave a baseball out there, and that might be it. And we'll see whether Jim McKean sticks to the letter of that law. Ken Hill goes back to the mound. He's permitted to take as many warm-up pitches as he wants to right now. If you're joining us late, we should inform you again, it is very cold here in Milwaukee. The game time temperature was 35 degrees with a wind chill of between 10 and 15. Winds gusting to 25 miles an hour out of the west, blowing out toward left field and swirling tremendously out in center field. And baseballs were thrown out onto the playing field 5 different times from the moment that Cal Eldred was about to start the game. And another one had just been thrown onto the field, retrieved by Rusty Greer in left.
Well, and let's call it off, give it to the Rangers, and let's go home.
And Jim McKean has walked out there to short left field and watched Greer hand the baseball to one of the members of the grounds crew who carries it off. And the Brewers, with Burnitz at second and Valentine at first, have Gerald Williams coming to the plate, their number 8 hitter.
Of course, the problem is, for McKean now, I mean, he's almost got to make his threat good, or else it's empty. And if one more baseball comes out and he does forfeit the game to the Rangers, then you're really going to see a mess here.
Boy, that's for sure. A crowd of 40,000 was expected in Milwaukee. That appears to be the approximate size of the crowd. That's actually down from back in the 70s and 80s when the Brewers always had 50,000 or more for their opener. There are quite a few empty seats in the big upper deck here at County Stadium. Another baseball's been thrown onto the field, and that's being rolled off now.
Well, you know, what's he waiting for then? I mean, he's very fortunate. I say he. Everybody is very fortunate that no one's been hit by one of these things.
Well, Hill is ready to continue. Burnitz at second, Valentine at first, and one out. The Rangers ahead 1-0 in the bottom of the second. We've had a 14-minute delay. The stretch by Hill and the pitch swung on, hit high in the air to left field. Greer coming on toward the line, and he can't get it. It falls for a hit. Grounding third and heading home, Burnitz. He stops and goes back to third as the throw by Greer is cut off by Palmer. The bases are loaded.
Rusty Greer's got an exceptional throwing arm, and Chris Bando remembered that Burnitz really wanted to try it, and he really had to throw on the brakes when he saw Bando say, don't.
Now, whether Ken Hill is affected by the delay, who knows? Burnitz at third, Valentine at second, Williams at first. The Rangers still leading 1-0. The number 9 batter, Matheny, is at the plate. The Rangers would get out of the inning with a double play. Left field is the sun field here in Milwaukee. And there's plenty of sunshine today, although it's cold. Hill to the stretch. And here's the pitch. And there's a strike, a fastball knee-high on the outside corner. Matheny hitting 123 in the early going. Burnitz at third, Valentine at second, Williams at first. The Rangers straight away in the outfield. McLemore cheats a few steps towards second base on the infield. On deck is Vigna, a lefty. Here's the 0-1 pitch. Slider outside, 1 ball and 1 strike.
It'd be hard to imagine Hill not being affected physically by that stoppage.
He came off for 14 minutes. He had the opportunity to go up to the clubhouse to stay warm if he chose to do so, and was allowed to warm up again. The 1-1 pitch swung on and fouled back. A slider away. Matheny just barely got a piece of it, and it's 1 ball and 2 strikes.
I guess he's just got to tell himself it's like, okay, I got the side out. My team went to bat for 15 minutes. Now back I come. To the extent that he can convince himself that that's what was going on.
There hasn't been a ball hard hit off Hill in the inning. He struck out the first batter, walked the second batter, gave up an infield hit, and then a pop fly that fell for a single. He is 1-2 on the stretch by Hill, and he steps off the bat.